All right, and away we go. So this should be a pretty good matchup. I'm not sure exactly who's going to win. Shadow and Joke are very good players in their own respective rights, but I do not know how they play together. That is one thing that is going to be kind of eluding me personally, as I've never really seen Shadow or Joke play together. That being said, Tyrion and Greenspirit are also very formidable duos. They've obviously played many games together, so it's going to have to be interesting. Joke going cash out, Tyrion going YOLO, Green going greed, and Shadow going chaos. If we look at just this initial pick, I like what Shadow is trying to do here with Joke. I think cash out right now is very strong. I've been using it quite often in ranked. We do see Shadow going for a, relatively speaking, pretty strong start in the Bone Crusher. Allows for a lot of potential swapping around in the mid game. Pretty strong overall from him. A Zeus start from Tyrion. And he's got a pretty good Zeus roll if you look down here at the bottom. We see the Zeus, a Steed, and a Aqua. We have APS and Millennium for your more expensive units in the YOLO roll. So it's, all things considered, a pretty decent YOLO roll. Still waiting on Green to build. Joke going Flower. Cash out Flower I think is pretty strong. Gives him the opportunity to go 6 worker potentially, depending on if they send a 20 on 1. Both Shadow and Joke going 4 worker starts makes sense. Let's see here. Green going for a Grarl start. Interesting. It seems that he's going to be trying to go for the Holy Avenger. Holy Avenger is extremely strong, so we'll see kind of how it goes. We see a 3 worker so far on Green. Interesting that he doesn't go 4. Okay, there we see the 4 now after getting the 20. 20's across the board. That does allow Shadow and Joke to push 5 and 6 workers respectively. And this is the beauty of cash out, right? With cash out, if you can just get that initial good roll, right, to give you that push, you can very easily go high worker push. We see Green actually going for the 5 workers. I'm interested to see if Green ends up getting sent here. If he gets a snail, this could really mess up his ability to go for this Holy Avenger. We'll kind of see what happens, though. I'm not sure if we're going to see the snail coming in out of Joke. Doesn't seem like it so far. That being said, 5 work across the board, Joke on 6. 5 on Tyrion's pretty normal. It does take until after income for him to get that unit, obviously. To get that worker push. With the Zeus, you're just a little bit behind on the worker for 5 unless you are cash out. That being said, seems like easy holds across the board. If anything, Greenspirit kind of got away with one here. If he would have got a snail sent to him with the 5 worker push, he would not have been able to get Holy Avenger. I do not believe. So it'll be interesting. We do see sends coming across. DT is on all but Shadow. It makes sense that Shadow sends the Lizard into Tyrion. DT into both Joke and Shadow makes sense. I don't know if the DT will be enough to actually get Shadow here. The Consort coming in out of Joke is going to be close. I'm not sure if that holds. The Holy Avenger drop does come through, and we see a Steed drop out of Tyrion. I don't particularly love the Steed and Split, but I understand the thought process behind it. Shadow does end up getting a 60 here. Pushing the Dragon Turtle to the right is interesting. It gives him a pretty easy hold, in my opinion, because the Dragon Turtle now does not sit on the Bone Crusher and kill it. That being said, Tyrion is leaking the 40 here, or 60 here, excuse me. I did not see the snail coming after income. Makes sense, 60 into Zeus. With Steed, if the Steed is not positioned correctly, it's going to be kind of an upside down game. Shadow holding, very close, at least. We'll see here if he manages to pull this one off. The Fire Archer just barely hanging on by a thread. And he does indeed hold. So the only leak out of that round of sends was indeed Tyrion's Zeus here. I think potentially if Tyrion would have placed the Zeus down bottom, not Zeus, the Steed down bottom, there might have been a potential. I don't know how this split ended up going because I couldn't see it. I am very, very surprised to see Joke did not leak, but the consort is very powerful on 3. We do see 7 workers across the board, aside from Tyrion. Tyrion is the only one who have leaked, obviously. Shadow coming back in with another send makes sense. If you look at Tyrion's build, he leaked last wave. If he did push, he's weak again. He is shifting gold, it looked like. No, there is a Warg placement. We do see Green sending again into Shadow. Not a terrible idea, honestly. Shadow is, I would almost argue, weaker here if he had not built than he was on 3. But he does indeed drop a Ranger. Should be a pretty easy hold for him. Let's check in over here on Tyrion's build. Tyrion is holding, or very close to it. Looks like that is a hold. And we do see Joke going for Ascend on 5 into Green, which makes the most sense. Especially if you're looking at a Holy Avenger, right? The Holy Avenger is going to be a little bit interesting in the mid-game here. It depends on how Joke and Shadow want to play it. Shadow, again, having a beautiful hold. Very slow and methodical. Worked out nice for him. We do see, though, that Tyrion did, in fact, re-roll. So we do have a Warg now in his role, which gives him at least 1 tank. He did drop a unit out, being, I believe it was Tempest, which isn't too big of an issue. We do see 8 workers out of Shadow now, but they are sending here a Fiend and then a Fiend Lizard. I don't know if Fiend Lizard will get through Greenspirit here, honestly. But these are, relatively speaking, pretty large sends overall. So we'll kind of see. It depends a little bit on the aggro given to the Butcher and then the Holy Avenger. Is it a 1-for-1 aggro? Is everything on one or the other? And I think that's really kind of the important thing to look for here. Holy Avenger did end up taking very little aggro in this first send. That being said, Green, I think, is holding. This is just too strong of a build. Tyrion, though, on the other hand, it looks like he is leaking to the 80. Obviously, Shadow and Joke not getting a send there are pretty easy holds. We do see Joke having built a Zerker in preparation for next wave, as well as Shadow going a Daphne, both of which are very strong next. Shadow also has the opportunity to go for a Zerker if you wanted to sell a unit. We do not see any sends coming in, though, from the side of Tyrion and Green. Green did push to 10 workers here, which, in my opinion, makes sense, right? He's got a pretty nasty role, in my opinion, for the mid to early game, right? He does actually even, in fact, have Nightmare to go with it as well, so pretty easy overall for him, I believe. Excuse me there, guys. Sorry about the yawn. Now, if I'm looking at Greenspirit and I'm saying, okay, when is his next weakest wave? Realistically, probably wave 8. We do see Shadow double sending Lizards here. I think they're kind of anticipating Green and Tyrion to send here. I do believe Shadow needs these Lizards more or less for income. We do see the Mimic in income, it seemed like, from Tyrion. Very close to it nonetheless. Mimic should be pretty rough into Joke's build. That being said, we'll kind of see how it goes. We do see the Mimic and a Brute, so the Brute could very well slow down any type of attack damage he has in the Deep Coiler, etc. Shadow building a Mudman and hardening makes sense to me here. He goes double False Maiden and then hardens a Mudman. Going to be a 200 send onto Shadow and a 240 into Joke. So they definitely felt the pressure here. That's why you see the fact that they income sent as well as hardened and built as much as they possibly could for this wave. Shadow's not doing a bad job here. Will be a leak, I do believe. But You know, it's a lot closer than it looks. Tyrion does leak to the the income send here, so not bad. Just to get that little bit of income leak back. It would be much worse if obviously they had not sent on this wave. All things considered, if you look at the leaks here, 42 and 86% for what ended up being a 200 and 240 send honestly isn't that bad. It's only going to put them down about 40%, 50%, and so it could be much worse. Could be much worse for that size of send. That being said, I do believe that Tyrion and Green kind of came ahead in this one because of the fact that Green realistically was able to now get the Sovereign. I think that in itself is extremely potent and kind of takes away from the ability of Joke to leak him anytime soon. We do see the Fiend coming in, obviously. I think this is more or less an attempt to see if they can leak Green, hoping he doesn't have the gold, hoping he pushed too much, whatever it may be. I do not believe that the Double Fiend will leak a healing Sovereign here. It will be close, I guess, but not really even close at all. We do see Shadow coming in with a Mole here. Mole makes a lot of sense if you look into what Tyrion can build from what he's seen, right? But as soon as the Millennium comes down with the APS, there isn't really a whole lot that Shadow could send here and actually leak him, right? That APS is, relatively speaking, pretty nasty. Unit 4, Wave 9, especially when you consider the fact that he's got APS. He doesn't really have much for tanks, as can be seen by the fact that he only has a Warg, but shouldn't be too much of a worry for him. We do not see sends coming in at all from Tyrion and Greenspirit, though Green is at 16 workers now, so very much eclipsing anybody else in the lobby in terms of worker push. The leak on 7 really caused Joke and Shadow to be unable to push right from that 200 send, at least unable to push as hard as they realistically would have liked to. Shadow's send of the Mole, Lizard, and Snail is not going to be enough. The Millennium is just too incredibly powerful on this wave and just was able to kind of barrel roll through. This Snail here was just an income send to be able to get the head chef out, right? That's all this was. It was to ensure that the head chef comes out and is able to do its job. We see for the spells, Vampire, Overwork, and Hero. So realistically, if Green and Tyrion want to go for what I would consider a kill shot on 11, which could be very well what they're going for, we see a 240 myth on Tyrion and almost 300 mythium on Greenspirit. If they go for the kill shot next, I really think that they probably go something like Overwork. If they are themselves worried about leaking, they'll probably go for something more along the lines of Hero or Vampire. That being said, we do see a Siege Ram coming out of Greenspirit and a Four Eyes coming out of Tyrion. So it does indeed look like they are going for more of a kill shot. Shadow and Joke are going for an income send here. So we see the triple Lizard and the double Fiend coming out. Okay, so we see Hero taken on Tyrion. It goes on the APS. And we see Vampire taken on Greenspirit, dropped on top of his head chef. So this will be a triple healing Sovereign. Triple healing Sovereign is extremely good on this wave, in general in this game, but it's not very good on this wave, right? And they are just kind of skirting by value-wise, right? 310 under, 135 under. I do believe, though, at the end of the day, this should be a pretty easy setup and slam dunk by Tyrion and Green. Let's see here, though. The Kingpins coming out did help quite a bit in Joke's build. Double Kingpin here. Actually quite potent, even if they only are an 80 stack and a 68 stack, right? 85 and a 68. I mean, not great stacks-wise, but doing a phenomenal job holding. And there we go. It looks like he will hold full, if not full, very close to it. So Shadow only pro leaking as well. It's actually looking quite good for Shadow and Joke. I fully anticipated them to get clobber knocked here, and they're holding all but 3 creeps, 2 creeps and a hermit. Like, that is phenomenal for Shadow and Joke. Beautiful holds by them. The Kingpin's coming in clutch. Literally, the Kingpin itself, I think, was the deciding factor there. If the Kingpins were not to have gotten dropped there, as well as the hero bunk with healing, I don't think that goes nearly as well for Shadow or anything of the sort. Right? So we do see Shadow and Joke at least pushing now a little bit more. They're still below Greenspirit's worker count. That being said, they're catching up a little bit. It doesn't seem too crazy to me that Shadow and Joke get a little bit of a boost here, right? If you see their value alone, right, Shadow is shifting a lot of gold here. Joke has some gold in bank and is also over value. It looks like Shadow indeed built here. Build the Berserker here. I think that makes the most sense if they want to go for a long save, right? And if you look at Greenspirit's build, and Tyrion's build for that matter, you realistically want to go on something like wave 15, most likely. Wave 15 probably makes the most sense. You're not going to go 14 into Millennium Hero with APS, and you don't really want to go 14 into a Sovereign, right? So while Shadow and Joke are behind worker-wise, they are better off overall value-wise. And at the end of the day, if you look at the income of Shadow and Joke versus Tyrion and Green, the income totals are about the same, right? So your higher worker count only really matters when you are looking at something along the lines of like the ability to send more for kill. If your worker count is just higher, but your income is the same and your value is lower, right, then you're kind of in an upside down game where you're not going to be doing as well, right? Like if you look here, Shadow has almost free reign here to do what he wants because he's pretty close to value, is good on these next 2 waves. Joke is actually phenomenal on these next 2 waves now. And Tyrion's good next wave but has no tanks and no real damage outside of Millennium Doomsday. And Greenspirit's got a one-trick pony kind of build right now. You know, he's only got the Het Chef with triple healing on the Sov, right? As soon as that that Sov gets targeted, that's all his damage gone. So we'll kind of see what happens, but I think 15 will inevitably be the play. No sense out of Tyrion and Green. This, I think, will be a kill shot going into wave 15. This will definitely be death on 15 for some team. I don't know which. Shadow is still highest value in the lobby. He does have a Mudman he can harden. He did build some veterans here. He's got multiple Millenniums now. He's got a Zerker. He's gotten good tank value on these next couple waves, right? Next 2 waves, I should say, this wave and 15. That being said, we do see the Ocean Templar coming out of green, and we do see a ton of not-so-green devils being built here by green as well. So we do see a pretty interesting setup here in a race. I think this will definitely be a race. I don't know if the Gargoyle spam will be enough on a green. That being said, we are seeing across the board basically 400 sends or more. Joke's a little bit smaller than a 400, but it will be close. I dislike the Centaur here, but I guess the Centaur play is to try to whittle down all the green devils, which is not bad in my opinion. It will kind of depend on what direction those the Centaur goes. That being said, we are seeing a delayed extra send out of Greenspirit, which is a little bit risky in my opinion. He did not build full. I mean, he did not send full, right? And delayed that extra 320, extra probably 100 gold or so that he missed out on, maybe a little bit more, a little less of income. I didn't see in particular what he ended up having. That being said, we do see the gargoyle spam, which in fact is getting kind of clobbered down by the Centaur. So good push there to get the Centaur in the split and get that going down. We do see Tyrion leaking. Tyrion's not holding. There's no way. So it comes down to if Shadow or Joke could hold here. And it looks like Shadow has the best opportunity, but I don't think he will. So now the question is, does Green hold? If Green holds, then Green and Tyrion win. That is, I guess, the defining question. Though Joke and Shadow do both just leak, so that I think is game. I don't know if their king is strong enough to hold this. It was a race for everyone except for Green. Green's build is just disgusting, and that's really all that really matters, right? Very close. Very, very close. Woo! Shadow does... Shadow and Joke do survive here. Shadow and Joke do survive. That being said, they don't get any king damage. I think that just solidified the game for Green and Tyrion. That in itself, so I think solidified it. We will kind of see what happens, though. I think the next best wave is probably to go for something like 18. If I had to make the call, that seems to be what they're going for. Seen by the fact that Shadow is kind of building what I would consider pretty much 18. But they might be going for a Sui 17. As Joke is pushed, relatively speaking, pretty hard, up to 37 workers. So the question is, can Tyrion and Green leak Shadow and Joke on 17? I don't see a world in which Shadow and Joke hold 17 if they get a send. That being said, excuse me, we are seeing if Tyrion and Green send here. We do see a send out of Shadow, so it seems like they want to go on 17 here. So the Sui was for a 17 hit, not an 18. It kind of makes sense if you look at Green's build now. Double Sob, a bunch of gargoyles, right? So we'll kind of see what happens. Tyrion and Green don't send here. So I'm interested to see how this goes. I think the GK should stop the Doomsdays from dealing damage for quite some time. So that might be really the deciding factor on if Tyrion leaks or holds. That being said, we are only seeing, you know, what amounts to being, you know, 600 send or so out of Joke, even though he did full push. And Shadow's only going to get, you know, 360. So it's not like we're getting massive sends here out of Shadow. Though a 700 send is quite large into Green. I don't see Tyrion leaking here, though Green is leaking. Oh, Tyrion's leaking small. Tyrion is leaking small. Okay, so that's something. That is something. Tyrion's leaking small. Green did leak pretty hard, actually. Is this enough to actually kill them? I don't know, to be honest with you. Green leaking 100 and some percent there. They did not identify the Sui push, or if they did, they anticipated an 18 send. this does give Shadow and Joke quite a bit more gold for what ends up amounting to a race now on 18. We do see Joke pushing more, even going up to now 80 some workers. 89, going to be 90 workers, 91 workers, 93. Man's on a mission. So he's going full push basically here in an attempt to get green one more time. And we see Shadow not sending here. I assume he's probably going for something like a pack leader, so trying to get at least a little bit of a send into Tyrion. He doesn't have much going for him in the terms of a send. That being said, Joke is getting another 800 and some send into green, right? So if Tyrion leaks at all, that in itself is all you really need to see. We'll kind of see what happens here. Green is still very strong in terms of typing, right? He's got an absolutely disgusting roll. Joke leaking with shutdown kind of makes me laugh. It does look like Shadow will hold here. So that is something they can hang their hat on. Does Shadow hold better or worse than Tyrion is the question, right? Because the end goal here is they have to get through and kill King faster than Shadow leaks. And I think, as you can see here, Shadow just does not have the required value. So that was a very close race, very close game. But Green Dwarf does take it in game one. I think this game is solely decided by the fact that Greenspirit got an absolute disgusting roll. Absolutely disgusting. He literally doesn't even have to use the Nightmare ever in this. And then he's just able to continuously scale. The man is absolutely disgusting for having this style of roll. That being said, he does win the first game, right? So Green Dwarf does take the first matchup, 1-0 so far. So we'll go here and update that counter. All right, looking good. I do think Joke Sui was probably the right call. The downside is I think Shadow needed to leak Tyrion more here. Either Shadow needs to leak Tyrion more, or he needs to go for something more or less like a send on 18 full. But I guess their thought process was with Tyrion, Joke leaking, full pushing on 16, only having built 20, right? He needed to try to send for kill on 17. It got very close. They brought them down from 100 to 34. And then they almost won the race. The problem is Shadow just did not have enough Mythium to really leak Tyrion again. And I think that has kind of the biggest implications there, right?